Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast. The cabinet on Sunday voted in favor of establishing a national guard under Itamar Ben Gvir, and it isn't going without criticism. Meantime, the Western Wall is undergoing its spring cleaning ahead of Passover. And later, 20 out of 37 2023 Eurovision acts are in Tel Aviv, hosting the traditional Israel calling event ahead of Eurovision. We're starting with this story. Less than 24 hours after the airstrike attributed to Israel in Syria, Israeli Air Force helicopters and fighter jets were launched on Sunday night following an unidentified aircraft entering Israeli territory from Syria. The vehicle was monitored by the control unit of the Air Force while being shot down in an open area, not posing a danger at any stage. The IDF estimating it was an Iranian aircraft, and about an hour after it entered Israel, an explosion was reported in Syria at an airport near Damascus. Although it was not reported that Israel was behind it, and it is believed to be a bomb that was set off in a vehicle. Now the security forces are searching for the wreckage of the aircraft to assess its kind. And while it is believed to be an Iranian vehicle, until fragments are found, it will not be possible to say this with certainty. The circumstances are being examined, including the possibility that this is an Iranian attack as a result of last night's report on the strike in Syria. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during the weekly cabinet meeting saying loudly and clearly that the domestic issues in Israel will never disrupt Israel's fight against its enemies on all fronts.
אנחנו גובים מחיר כבד מהמשטרים שתומכים בטרור מחוץ לגבולות ישראל. אני מציע לאויבינו לא לטעות. הוויכוח הפנימי בישראל לא פוגע ולא יפגע כהוא זה בנחישות ובעוצמה שלנו וביכולת שלנו לפעול נגד אויבינו בכל החזיתות, בכל מקום ובכל עת שידרשו.
Netanyahu's televised remark went without elaborating any further and followed what Syria described as an Israeli military strike in Homs province, and which, according to Western intelligence sources, hit air bases hosting Iranian personnel. Regarding the storm of the attempted attack in the old city of Jerusalem, Netanyahu added, "I fully support the Israel police for thwarting the terrorists on the Temple Mount this weekend. We all pray for the peace of the IDF soldiers who were injured in the ramming attack in the Etzion block." At the end of the cabinet meeting, Netanyahu spoke about the upcoming Passover holiday, saying, "This week we will all be sitting around the Seder table. I want to remind you that throughout the generations on Passover, we have always remembered that we have a common past of thousands of years and a common future in which we all pray for the next year in Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem, we will remember even more that we have a glorious past and a bright future ahead together." In a controversial move, the cabinet on Sunday voted in favor of establishing a national guard under National Security Minister Itamar Ben Gvir. Big budget cuts across the board are expected to fund such an endeavor. ILTV's William Sharon reports.
The new body will have some 2,000 forces reporting to Ben Gvir, with the purpose of combating national crime, terrorism, and restoring the peace. No announcement has been made yet to when this force is expected to be functional, but it could take several months. This new force comes amid Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's vowing to Ben Gvir that he'll be able to run such a body as long as he stays in the government. Last week, Ben Gvir threatened to leave the coalition if Netanyahu paused the judicial reform bills, though not everyone in the cabinet was on board with this new force, as some were opposed to the 1.5 budget cut every ministry will now face in order to soar up the 1 billion new Israeli shekels needed to launch it. Yet despite the reservations, they ended up voting for it. However, the opposition is strongly opposed to the move, with its leader Yair Lapid calling the government's decision ridiculous and despicable, and said the forces would serve as private thugs for Ben Gvir. For now, though, a committee of security professionals will iron out all the details as to how the force will operate, and they plan to have their conclusions ready in 90 days. Yet many former security officials are concerned about this development, with former police chief Moshe Kardi saying Ben Gvir would be able to orchestrate a coup with a kind of force under his control. As for Ben Gvir, he dismissed such warnings and said police officials opposed to the force are against it for egotistical reasons. Now, Israel already has a National Guard unit, and it is under Israeli police authority, which only has a few hundred people. What Ben Gvir is proposing is separating the force from police control and having it operate nationwide and be comprised of regular forces and tactical dedicated brigades.
And with us now to elaborate on Itamar Ben Gvir's forming National Guard to make us really understand its implication is Jerusalem Post political correspondent Eliav Brewer. Eliav, what exactly is Itamar Ben Gvir trying to accomplish with this new National Guard?
What he's trying to accomplish, first and foremost, is to pander to his base. I think the National Guard is more than anything else, it's a classic example of what we call Israel bluff, for the reason, as was just stated, that a National Guard already exists under the police's jurisdiction. And while Ben Gvir said he wants the police to answer, he wants this new unit to answer to him directly, a committee that's forming now will likely decide to keep it under the police exactly like it already is. And what Ben Gvir is doing is getting additional budget for this National Guard, which will score him political brownie points, and he'll be able to present it to his base as a political success.
And why is this actually considered such a controversial move? I mean, some maybe even call it a dangerous one, according to detractors. I mean, take us into the budgets. What does it actually mean?
So I think in terms of the National Guard force, if in such a scenario it would be directly answerable to Ben Gvir, that would of course be quite dangerous. But it's also pretty clear at this point that there's no armed force, especially one that deals with internal issues, that's directly directly answers to a minister. That just doesn't happen, and it's likely illegal and likely won't be approved by the committee. And another thing is that this is a 1.5% budget cut. It's a sweeping cut in approximately 80 different government organizations, including national insurance, including the defense ministry, welfare. So a lot of the ministers within the government are also unhappy about this.
We are hearing that some of them are opposing it inside, but actually voted in favor. How come?
Well, that's a great question. There's always, inner politics going on, and oftentimes we hear about, opposition to certain suggestions behind closed doors, but a yes vote so as not to pay a political price for going against the party, or the will of the party leader, in this case, Netanyahu.
Yes. Now, what are some of the security implications we have in this case, actually?
That's a great question. I think that wisely, the government decided that this committee that's forming now will have representatives of all of the different security bodies in Israel: the Mossad, the Shin Bet, the IDF, the police, etc. And so that remains to be seen. Currently, the National Guard is under the border police, and so it remains clear that it's within the parameters in which the police operates. If under some constellation it's separated from the border police and formed as a separate unit, it remains to be seen exactly how it will work with the other security bodies, and that's something that the committee is going to have to decide and work out.
Eliav, now you named it Israel bluff before, but do we know anything about the people that are supposed to be appointed under Ben Gvir in case it really happens?
So there've been a number of rumors. One of them was Gal Hirsch, who was a leading candidate to take over as a police commissioner. He's a former IDF brigadier general. Another option was an officer named Abinoam Emuna, who has a problematic past and left the army after not being promoted due to a number of disciplinary issues. And so it's not clear, though. It remains to be seen. These are mostly rumors. I think that 2 or 3 months down the road, we'll know a lot more about what here is actually real and what of it is mostly just the continuation of the existing situation, just with a little bit more budget, maybe a little bit of a broader scale of operation.
Eliav, have a happy Passover. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Happy Passover.